I'm Jennifer Weston from Davidson County Public Library, a member library of NC Cardinal, and I am just here to facilitate this conversation. We have a long list of things we would like to review, but every one of them is intended to be a discussion. So I am not muting anybody from my end, so you'll need to do that on your side if you want to be muted, but please speak up at any time if you have a microphone, or we are monitoring the chat box. So if you want to type as a note in the chat, you can do that by using the little chat bubble. And I'm going to just stay on this agenda, and we're going to take notes on the agenda as we go. And the agenda should be here if you can send it out with the invitation to the meeting, and it is available for all to make edits to if they want to. So if you want to bring that up during this call so that you can also make edits, that's fine. If you want to just go straight to this and create just a short URL, that's there. You can use that bit.ly to get there as well. So back to the kinds of things that are available on the wiki, which is linked up here at the top of the screen, up there. If we get there, I just want to show you that briefly. All of our meeting notes are here. The recordings will be there by the end of the week. And then we have several other resources on here. The Launchpad presentation that Mary and Andrea did at this past conference was wonderful. We'll talk about that again, but there's a link to that, along with the Evergreen YouTube channel, just some general documentation, and then links to all the bugs that affect catalogers. So we're going to talk about a lot of those too, but I want to just point out that you can always go to the wiki and get to all of these links, and they will be updated during the months when we're not meeting, so we'll keep those updated as well. But I want to make sure everybody's pointed there. There's some good stuff. So I think I've covered that. Links to Launchpad, bug review by category. We'll do a little more classification of those after this conversation and add more general resources. Anything you think would be good for this group to have, please let us know. Okay. Good news. We're continuing to have monthly releases. What are fantastic. Very, very. And the monthly releases, one of the things I'd like for us to do, let me ask, as catalogers, people are there, can you keep up is not the right word. Are we reviewing the monthly release notes to see what affects catalogers, or is that something that we could do better to pull that out and send out to the cataloging community? And that's a question for everybody here on the call. Would it be better for us to pull out of the monthly releases things that are just for catalogers and kind of make a separate document for that, is the question.
I really like the thought of that. If it's something, would we do that together, or would someone be appointed to do that?
If we really like the idea, I think it would be good to talk to whoever's doing the release notes, because I don't feel like that's done by just a single person. I think that the documentation interest group, people from that work along with it, but it's something I would be willing to talk to them about. So when they do that, say, hey, we're preparing our release notes, and if the catalogers want to review it, to send to this group, and we've got enough people on our committee that we could do that and take turns. If it's something that would be beneficial,
I'd find that helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jane Sandberg is the one. Sorry if you already mentioned this. I blipped out for a minute. My audio did, but Jane Sandberg is the one who's currently kind of taking primary responsibility for the release notes. So I'd at least start with her, or at least compiling them.
Okay. I'll just make a note because she couldn't be with us today, but she'd normally join us. So yeah, I will. Just to make this part of the regular. Oh, thanks. So it sounds like other people will find this beneficial too. I know that I have good intentions, but that doesn't help me read release notes. So about making these available. Okay, great. And then when we come together at times like this, it would be easier to have a list that's just meant for us to review. That goes along with the 3.2 was released in October as well. And I think we're going to look at some things that did get into 3.2 and that did not get into 3.2 that still need some input from us. So I think those will go together. So let me just make that nice and bold. So we'll see it when we get there. Okay, great. All right, so we're getting some good feedback there. Ed, We also have been getting a lot of updates about the Hackaway that just happened last week, and I think some really good things happened at the Hackaway last week. And again, trying to get through all the notes and seeing what pertains to us, and even slightly, I thought this would be a good idea to have a separate conversation. So Galen has agreed to do that for us in a different call. We haven't scheduled it yet, so that's one of the follow-ups, but we will do that later in November or early December, so we can have a conversation just about what the developers have been working on. Since it's an annual Hackaway, and they get a lot done in 3 days, so that we can kind of go through that piece by piece and see if there's anything else that we can give input on, or if there's anything else that's going to affect our lives pretty significantly. So that'll be next. Is there anything from the Hackaway that people have seen that you wanted to talk about today? I know we've got a long list of other bugs we wanted to look at, but if there is, please let me know, because I don't want to just skip over it like it's not important. But we will cover it in greater detail in an upcoming call. Okay. Okay. Not seeing anything else. We do have this long list of bug fixes and new features, things that might be of interest to us. Okay. And we got people still trying to get in there, but Cardinal folks are taking care of that. Thank you. The consistent terminology in the web client. This is a conversation that went on in email on the listservs, as well as it was a bug, and we can hop out over to the Launchpad. But I'm interested if other people have been following this. The consistent terminology started with, are we using items or copies? Are we using call numbers or volumes? And was anybody here participating in that conversation and want to add more to it? Because I can pop out to the Launchpad and we can kind of see what was going on there. Okay.
I think I've participated in that one before, but I don't remember now.
Okay. Well, let's see what we've got here.
I know there have been several conversations. I can't remember which ones I've participated in.
Yeah, there were. There were emails, and then there was, and then there were some follow-up emails, and then there was a survey. Okay, yeah, and Beth says kind of the same things. I kind of felt that way too. I felt like there were some conversations, and there was a survey, and the results of the survey came out, and now I'm seeing emails about, oh, now we need to update the documentation. I'm like, okay, so decisions have been made. But it was based on input, which I think is great, but I wanted to know what happened. And so the first thing I did is I came to the bug that's here, and I scrolled all the way to the bottom, because this is how I handle bugs. And all the way at the bottom, it says the fix has been committed, and it was released. I think it was released to 3.2 in October. I don't know how many of us are in 3.2.
Yeah,
but
correct. It's in 3.2 right now.
Okay, great. So we could actually see it in business. All righty, I wanted to come back through here because there's a lot of conversation was documented here on Launchpad, which is a good reason for us to use Launchpad. So if we go through, there's the survey results. But here's where I got to, and having not looked at 3.2, because, again, I just went to 3.1, and I would be interested in anybody that is on 3.2 if they've noticed this. Looks like we've decided that instead of copies, we're going to use items, and instead of volumes, we will use call numbers just to be consistent. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Definitely the item is in 3.2 from the testing. And yet most places it says copy, a call number. But I've only been testing in 3.2. I haven't used it as much. We haven't migrated to it yet. We're just in the testing stage.
Right.
So that's not what I'm paying attention to. I've just noticed it.
Yeah. It sounds like
changed. Yeah, they refer to things as holdings, like it says, rather than saying call numbers and items. They'll say holdings.
I think that she even said there are times when it just doesn't lend, because there's the volume copy editor that's now a holdings editor. I think that quite a few changes have been made, but not all of them really lend themselves to this particular structure. So my thought was it would be good just to have this summarized. Now that the Launchpad, it kind of the conversation is done because the bug was documented and it's been implemented, it's been committed. I think that it might be good just to have this put into the Evergreen documentation, the official documentation. I'm not sure how much detail was in the release notes, but I don't think that it covered what we as catalogers would like to see. So I think I'm going to make a note here then to see if we can't just update the documentation. Yeah, there we go. And that way we can then send that out to the group and make sure that as people move to 3.2 or begin testing, if there are additional places that changes need to be made, then we can at least document what's been done already. Okay.
Yeah, my only problem with the volume call number thing is that really in Evergreen, they're two different things. Because there's the volume, the record, there's the volume, there's the bib record, the volume record, and the item record. And the volume record is not the same thing as the call number.
Right. I remember somebody even brought that up on the listserv, that the volume was the container for the call number, but that they weren't the same thing. But I think
that might have been me.
It might have been. I don't actually remember.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't me. But I thought that was a good point. But I think that at the end of the day, the community survey went the other way.
Yeah.
To treat them as analogous, even if they're technically not same, or to treat them as the same thing, even though they're technically one is a attribute of the other.
And even saw somewhere that there are facets within the modules where you can actually just rename a label if you want to, at least for the OPAC, for your patrons, if you don't feel like that this is too detailed for patrons to get into if you're used to calling things one way. So I think that would also be good to document where we can use labels, at least as an outward facing. If not,
library, telling them that the volume is the call number help them understand it, because volume made no sense to them. So I think this is a step forward for us.
Yes. Okay. So we'll get some clarification on what's going on, and then that would lead to the next conversation of, okay, here's how it's really working, and other questions, because other questions and concerns we may have about it, because just because this first change has been released doesn't mean we can't continue to tweak it, which is the beauty of open source software. We can keep changing. And we will look for all the changes in the documentation I think they're working on too, so that will help us, but we want something I think just simplified. It doesn't have to be screen by screen, but in general how we're using them. So then that's where we should be tasked with giving input as catalogers. And
I think
go ahead.
In 3.2, I think one of the places it's going to cause a little bit of confusion is in the Mark IV menu, because you have title holds transfer and holdings transfer, one right after the other, and I think I've already had one cataloger who kind of got that confused.
Okay.
So that's just something to think about, calling them holdings rather than, and I don't know what the solution to that would be, but that did, like I said, that did cause a little bit of confusion when they were trying to transfer something in 3.2 to test.
So, Elaine, you're talking about the menu at the record menu where it says
the Mark IV
overlay target title holdings transfer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because the hold is referring to an actual hold, like a request, and then holding. Yeah, I can see how that's
Right.
Yeah.
confusing to have those
Because
two next to each other.
I sometimes think it's confusing when I look at view holds or holdings view.
That's also
Those
a
are
good point.
the two tabs that I get confused on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that Mark IV menu could be helped if it were rearranged.
Mhm.
So,
And that would be a pretty simple fix, honestly.
yeah, which one would be the most frequently used selection?
Well,
Because conjoined items to me has never been something that was at the top of our list for anything, and yet it always seems to be prominently there.
yeah, and Jennifer, it's MARK menu, not MARC menu.
As you can tell, I'm a.
uh,
Thank you. Is it just a number 4? Mark IV menu.
Mark FOR. Like
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm. Yep. Cataloger. No, there we go. I'm going to say that explore rearranging. Okay, Martha wants to know what's Mark IV.
It's like Mark for transfer or Mark for ... basically.
Yeah, it's 2 words.
Yeah.
It's 2 words. Mark IV.
Here, I put a picture in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Picture says a million words.
Yeah, and Martha also suggested maybe calling it patron holds instead of just holds.
Well, under the Mark IV menu, it's about transferring holds from one record to another.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It does say title holds,
right.
I believe,
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly.
It does say title holds. I'm looking at it right now.
We also have, this is just, we found that right now is we're investigating why, but transferring items off of, last time you transfer something off of a record, the record doesn't delete. But at any rate, because we're doing for our acquisitions records,
Mm-hmm.
we are transferring items off of them rather than merging or overlaying.
Oh.
And so we're also we have not implemented on order holds yet. So we would always have to make sure that we transferred holds to. So someone had asked which one was done more often, and I am trying to. I don't know. For catalogers, I think just transferring things are done more often. Yep. But that might, for us, that might change if we always want to make sure we're transferring the holds. The holds get transferred on the title.
Well, I think where we go from here then is let's just start a discussion thread with the listserv, and let's get some input. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like we have a lot that's unresolved there.
And that may have to wait until everybody goes to 3.2.
Sure.
And so that they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Ways more often.
Well, it's not to say those of you that are at least testing it can't give us a little input first and make it less painful for the rest of us. Thank you.
That's true.
And we always appreciate that. Okay. And that was just the language down there. Okay. Moving on then away from that, because we've got to bold that. So I'll see it. Okay. So let's talk a little about these Omnibus Bug Fixes. This kind of thing could actually end up in an omnibus if all we want to do is rearrange the order of something, for example. But, Andrea, are you here? Do you want to talk about kind of where we stand with all of these items? And I can click off to the spreadsheet if you want.
Yeah, I linked the public version of the spreadsheet there for people to take a look at. So there are 2 left on that list. Well, the third one's highlighted in yellow just because it's technically not released yet, but it was committed for 3.2.2 and 3. That should say 3.1.8. Let me fix that. there are 2 outstanding ones that have pull requests available for testing. So that's just my plea to the catalogers. If you have a testing environment available to you or can have one set up, those have been out there for a while now, and it would be great to have them tested and signed off so they can go into the code. But other than those 3, and then one that was marked as won't fix, but then later unmarked won't fix after we included our part of the project. They've all been merged in one way or another. A couple of them went in as part of the earlier cataloging omnibus that we did in May. And then the rest of the list we picked off, and they all went in pretty much for early 3.2, which was my goal. Are there any questions about what's on that list or how we went about that? I think not just with this project and the cataloging omnibus, but there's a ton of other community work that went into fixing cataloging bugs basically from the conference until 3.2, and that was, I think, really, really excellent to see. So if anyone has any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for pulling it all together, because getting it all in one place makes it so much easier to follow.
You're welcome. Yeah, and we were happy with the community response here, so we might be looking at doing similar kind of grouped bug fixes in the future, where we pull together a list and say, hey, here's what we think we can fix in a reasonable time frame, and sending that out to the community for sponsorship. So that's definitely something that we were happy with the response we got in general, and we'll look to doing that in the future. So
fantastic. Do you want to talk a little about the 2 that still need testing, just in case there are people that want to help?
Sure. So let me pull those up so I'm not just talking off the top of my head here. So the one web staff UI issues in the copy volume editor, that's just sort of a simple UI fix that indicates when a volume is newly created versus when one is being edited. And in some ways that's a little bit of a training thing, but this just makes it more clear with a little highlight that you're creating a new thing versus you're editing something when you're looking at it. So it does have, let's see, the last work on that was Jane Sandberg made a tweak to Jason Etheridge's branch to be more in compliance with the Web Content Accessibility Group guidelines. So she rebased that, and that's just sort of waiting testing. But it's a fairly, it's a simple fix. You load it up, and new things are a different color. And that's kind of the beginning and end of that one. So that was one of the smaller ones that we did. But if anyone can load up Jane's branch and take a look at that and give that a sign off and a push, that's the one that needs that. And then for the record source, setting record source was a little bit thornier. But that one, Caesar had a branch out for that one about 6 weeks ago. And he offered a few testing guidelines for that. And that's one where if you marked a bib record for overlay, you wouldn't update the source correctly when you were editing it. So it's, again, that one is another kind of small one. It was a little thornier to detangle.
Yeah, sure. So important for people that are
do edits and overlays and stuff. That one, you take a look at that. And the nice thing is, like I said, Caesar did in his comment for that offer a couple of testing paths. So again, if you have somebody that can load that up and go through his testing steps and then give a sign off on that. And you, Jennifer, called attention at the beginning to various bug kind of procedures, but I just want to reiterate that you do not have to be a committer or know anything about Git to sign off on a bug. If you test it, there is language that the community approved where you can just enter a comment on Launchpad that says, I have tested this bug and I consent to signing off with it with my name, your name here, and my email address, your email address here. So any of you who have tested a bug can add that comment and then add the signed off tag. You don't have to do that through Git. So if that's a barrier to anybody, so.
Yeah. So it really is just a matter of making the comment on here.
Yep. Test it and make that comment, and then
and there you go.
Somebody will merge it. But yeah, are there
and
any questions with those?
And I know there's documentation, and we won't spend time now, but if people have never tested before on how to do that, and I think, Elaine, I think you and Taryn have some really good stuff that's gone out, and if others have anything they want to share about people that are new to testing, that would be good for us to do, so I'll pop that over here too.
Yeah, and sometimes, and Pines does have really excellent testing procedures that they use, but for these kind of the ones that I just talked about that are sort of simple UI fixes, like if it's almost just a matter of going there and looking at it and poking around, adding a few items, stepping through a couple of basic workflows and being like, yep, doesn't break anything, because these are just kind of display things. So, but my general testing advice is step through what would be a normal workflow for you in whatever interface you're testing. So, and then see if it throws up anything strange.
We can do that. We're good at breaking things too as catalogers on purpose.
It's okay. That's how you learn how to which things need to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we always like to put them on our the Pines test servers, because Pines data sometimes breaks stuff anyway. I have seen it work on the general Evergreen test servers, and then we put it on Pines, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because the community demo systems typically rely on one fairly small set of relatively standardized Concerto data, and they don't have all of the legacy everythings that an actual functioning library system does. And that's a really good point, that things that might work okay in a test environment will not perform the same in a more realistic environment. So if you have sysadmins and stuff that can load up tests for you on your production data, that's a really good way to test.
Yeah, we have a a test server with all our production data, which is huge.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, for those of us that don't have that, we rely on the community test servers, and we are very glad to be able to rely on the community test servers. So thank you to those that do monitor those for us and provide those for us. Okay, so those are left from the Omnibus. These others that were there, moving along, of particular interest to catalogers. This wasn't part of the Omnibus, was it? These are two new ones separate from
Yeah, no,
that
these
list.
are two. These are separate. They were two features that went in to 3.2, just on their own. So they weren't part of the Omnibus or the bug fix projects.
And these have also been released. So this is just letting people know that this is some cool stuff that's already been released in 3.2, right?
Yep.
Okay. Gosh, do an inventory.
Because they're features, they're not backported to earlier releases the same way that some bug fixes are. So to get both of those two new features, you do have to be on 3.2.
Yep. So the inventory date, of course, just lets us do inventory and see when the last time we did that is. And the other is batch actions for search results. So if we can get a little more detail on what that is. And I can go out here, but can you give us a kind of general highlight?
Yeah, the tech specs aren't going to be super necessarily end-user helpful. But basically what it does is it creates a set of checkboxes in the OPAC search results next to each title that's listed. It does that both in the public OPAC and in the embedded staff client OPAC. And you can select one or many or all of them from your search results page and then add them to what the community decided to call a basket, which is essentially a revamping. It built upon the old idea of a temporary list, and it sort of took that and expanded it a little bit. But the idea is the same, where it's a temporary container for titles, and then you can look at the basket. and you can email the titles to yourself. You can print them out. If you're in the embedded staff client, you can also add them to either a new or existing staff bucket. Although there was a bug with that I uncovered the other day that I just filed, that you have to, there's two different basket actions menus, and it's available, to add to bucket is available in one, but not the other. But so for catalogers, like if you wanted to build a specific bucket based on search criteria, and it's easier to search via the OPAC than just the regular bucket search. So you can do that. You can build your search, create your basket, and then dump that into a record bucket to, make your changes or do whatever it is that you want to do with that. So that's why I wanted to mention that one.
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody's having trouble hearing Andrea. They're asking if she can speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. What part did you want me to repeat? The short version is that you can pick things from your search results list in the OPAC or the embedded OPAC in the staff client, add them to a temporary container called a basket, and then put that into a staff record bucket to manipulate them. So it's a much richer search than is available in bucket search, or if you use them to feed other things. Like I know some people use those for carousels or whatever. But
yeah, I love it. Can't wait to start using it. I'm still enjoying patron buckets, and now buckets are getting better.
Oh, yeah, that'll be really useful, especially for merging.
Oh, gosh, yes.
It's something, actually, that Pines has been asking for since almost day one. The catalogers, the ability to do, to pick from a search list to add to a bucket.
Yeah, this is pretty dreamy.
So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, I've been testing that, and it's really fun.
Yeah, it's one of those what ifs. What if we could do this? It would be fantastic. And so finally, it's here.
Well, we like it because when we're merging records, some people do a record query, but other people like to just, put in the ISBN or whatever the search term is, and then you have to open one record, add it to a bucket, open the second record, add it to a bucket.
Right.
And now you can just click on the little checkbox and say, put these in a bucket.
It's like Christmas. It really is.
It is.
It sure feels like it, yes. If for no other reason, that's the reason for people to move to 3.2.
Well, that was development sponsored by MassLink, so, direct your accolades accordingly.
Okay, absolutely.
MassLink and their development partners.
Cookies are in their future.
One of which was Pines, but
yes. Oh, and cookies are in your future. Everybody can.
That's fine.
Okay. I am being careful of the time. Thank you, Andrew. Those are very exciting. I like to share good news, too, things that are going to make our life easier. Okay. I am looking. I want to make sure that we hold this to an hour. And we've got a long list to go, so I think if it's okay with everybody else, we're going to kind of just skip the current roadmap because we're still on 3.2. And we can still look at the things that we're working on and what comes next. And that may come out of the Hackaway conversation that we'll have with Galen later on in the next few weeks. So I do want, while everyone's here, here's something that I've wanted to do, but I want to make sure that it's beneficial. And this is that Evergreen version survey design. And what I want to survey, and this will just go out to the listserv, would be I want to know how many people are using 3.2 versus 3.1, just to tell us what version you're on. And also tell us what particular I'm going to call them add-on modules. I know that's not really what it means, but are you using acquisitions? Are you using serials? Do you do heavy authorities work? So we can just kind of get a feel for who is out there that we can turn to if we have questions, if we are moving on, rather than just sending it out to the listserv, which sometimes you can just sit there for a while before we get answers. And I think it would be nice just to share experiences as people move along, as we upgrade from one version to the next. So do you think that's something, A, that people would respond to, and B, that you think would be helpful to have on the wiki, a list of what systems are on which version?
I think it would be helpful, but my only caution is that somebody would need to be keeping that wiki info up to date, because there sometimes information pages just go to the wiki to die.
Yes. As we found, our cataloging working group was just hanging out there, so yes.
Right, and it's not just that one, like there's others. So as long as that were somebody's, responsibility to keep on top of that, I think it would probably be useful information.
Okay. So I can certainly agree to do that, and at least send out, maybe quarterly, if anything's changed, to have people, to ask people to update their own. We can make it an editable document, but just to remind people to change it as change happens. So if we think it would be good, I don't mind putting it out there and then see what kind of response we get, because that's the other thing I'm concerned about is, if all of us put it on there, then I don't know that I have the time to chase it, but I'll be glad to collect what we can get on the listserv. Okay, Beth agrees with us, so I'll give that a shot this week. So I will send that out. Is there anything else we might want to include while we're sending this out, other than just those things? It's what version, and, are you using acquisition serials and doing authorities work? And if so, feel free to add to it, and I can, or send it to me off list if there's something you're curious about.
Reports, maybe?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. Something I blocked from my mind. Okay. And any kind of customized OPAC, because I know that that's something that we're just now looking at here in Cardinal at least. Okay, thanks. Ahead then. While we didn't talk about 3.2, we're going to look at some of these other bugs. We'll kind of go through them and see which ones you guys want to look at. But one thing that Elaine, the conversation that we started at the convention was about what major blockers are out there. Are there still major blockers in the eyes of when do we fully embrace Webby as catalogers? Are there things that we're just stumbling over every day that we really want fixed that are not necessarily on the horizon to be fixed anytime soon?
We marked one as a web staff blocker yesterday, which we should have already marked. It's and I don't remember the Launchpad bug off the top number, but it has to do with when you're printing pocket labels, it does not put in the owning library, which that's the reason most of our libraries use pocket labels, is so that it has the owning library on it. It's why I can't wean them off of pocket labels, which would make spine label printing so much easier.
Yes.
But so that's right now they have to go in and edit it, and they have to separate out the print the spine labels for each different branch as a group, rather than printing them out, batch, really truly batch. So it is a web staff blocker.
Okay. Elaine Galen said that he was going to be taking a look at that one. I can't promise you any kind of actual timeline on it, but we talked about that this morning in our development meeting internally. So he is going to be taking a look at that one.
Yeah, Taryn and I were talking about it yesterday, and we knew it was a bug. We couldn't find the bug, so she filed it again, and then somebody else found the other bug, the other Launchpad report. So
that's sometimes the best way to find duplicates, though.
Yeah, well, that's what we both knew we had seen it, but we just couldn't find it, and we said, okay, go ahead and do it, and somebody will find that duplicate.
Okay, fantastic. I'm glad Galen's taking a look at it, because that is pretty critical.
Yeah.
He's good for us. All right, anything else that we want to capture while we're all together? I guess I would also say with these web bloggers, if we encounter things like that or just have questions, I think also the listserv can be used for this reason, to say, okay, we've just found this one, we've documented the bug, and if you want people to support it, so all we have to do is go on and give heat to it and say, yes, it affects me too, to try to get it noticed, then that's what we're here for. So if we can find things like that and send it out and say, this is my problem, do you have the same problem, please say yes, to get a little notoriety.
Yeah, although there was, I don't remember now what it was, but there was one that we had a discussion on the list for, and I went in and did a bug report for it, and then there was crickets. So
that doesn't work when it's just crickets.
No.
Okay.
So, but at any rate.
Yeah. We'll try again. We'll do it again, and then we'll just say, okay, people, you still haven't responded.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be a support group. You're not being supportive. Okay. Now, in the last 15, 20 minutes or so here that we have, I think this is just a link out to all the cataloging bugs, and to, again, say if you want to find them, there's already a filtered link to get there so that you don't have to go to Launchpad and just be overwhelmed by everything that's there. We have all the cataloging things tagged, and that's how we get there. Now, all of these things listed here at the bottom are examples of things that need input from us. We talked about briefly in an email exchange preparing for this meeting about having a new tag that has something similar to needs input, not necessarily just for catalogers, but for any kind of bug that's out there that just really needs community insight to say, is this something that works for you? Is there something we're missing? So is this something, Andrew, that we can just do, that a tag can just be created for needs input?
Yeah, anyone who's on the Bug Wranglers team, I believe, can create an authorized tag. So Launchpad remembers all the tags.
Okay.
But Bug Wranglers can add certain tags to the approved tag list, which are the ones that are like available via click to search from like kind of the main bug page and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm on the Bug Wranglers team, and if there's something that we can agree on, like I think if it's going to be a general tag, we can create it and put out a list to the general listserv and be like, hey,
start using it.
Start using it, right? And things that, where we're seeking specifically end user input. But I guess while I was thinking a little bit more about this, I would caution us from kind of running away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it could be the kind of thing where you could apply that tag to literally all the bugs.
That's
and that's
true.
not helpful. And that's not helpful. But there are ones that are sort of seem to be more discussion oriented, where there could be several different possible solutions. And like the kind of the terminology one that you talked about earlier was one of those. There were several possible paths, and different people had different opinions about that. And that would be where, like, if I were, like me personally, that's where I would find such a tag to be helpful on things like that, like ones where there needs to be some kind of discussion among community specialists like catalogers to see like the different ways that people would interact with this and the different possible solutions and what the best path forward would be. So I'm not sure how to say that in a tag in 15 characters or less.
Well, does needs discussion sound better than needs input? Because I think you're right. I think everybody needs input.
Or I think needs discussion might work. And again, this might be something that it'll be worth, and you can give me an action item on that to just either before creating the tag or right after creating the tag, tossing it out to the general lister and saying, hey, this came up in the cataloging working group, but we'd like to broaden this in general. What does everyone think? And you know what? If it's crickets, I'll just create the tag and we can start using it.
That's right.
Well, and I would say once the tag is created, that you would be, if somebody's using it frivolously, just take it off if you can, and then tell them, please don't. This is what it's used for. Please don't use it for what you just did. I know that can be touchy, but
in the back of my mind for literally years has been a thought that there needs to be some kind of tag glossary, because there are other tags like needs test is occasionally used by somebody, it will apply that tag to a bug because it needs somebody to test it. And what that bug has historically meant is this needs an automated test written for this code, like e.g. test or something like that.
Oh.
So that's one of those ones where different sets of users in the community use that differently and not to mean the same thing at all. So in the back of my mind has long been I'm going to write up all the tags and what they mean.
That'd be a great idea, Andrew.
It's a great idea.
And all that support time you have.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else, it's that to it fairy. She's very stingy. So
we can send that to Dig.
They have less time than anyone. They do incredible work.
Oh, they do.
Already. And it's like 5 people. So
maybe we can get everybody in a room at this year's conference and just I'll scribe and you talk about what they mean. Okay. So if we get a tag, needs discussion, then
the tag needs discussion too.
Just getting
we could test it out. Yep. Okay, let's look at these and see if any of them jump out at anybody. What this really means is that we need to look at them. These are ones that theoretically would get a needs discussion tag, or at least need us to look at them and see if they apply to us. Some of these, I think, are just about how they're working and people are asking for particular changes in the way something works, like this URI. This is, we can go out to each of these. We'll just use this as a quick example. It's essentially saying the URI is being duplicated if you have multiple branches, in which we do. I don't use the URIs, thankfully. Not yet, but they're showing over and over and over again, so you get that long link because you own it, because multiple branches own the resource. It's just showing over and over. So this is really asking for it not to show multiple times.
Right, but if you scroll down to look at the discussion, you can see, and that's where, like, I think this is valuable, the needs discussion tag, because here's one where, Rogan took a look at it and came to the conclusion that, this is an entry issue, this is a data issue, but then Kathy disagrees. So that would be one where it would be valuable because they're both great people and awesome community members, but neither Rogan nor Kathy are catalogers, and so this would be one where it would be great to have actual catalogers weigh in on that one and say, oh, well, here's what we would expect that behavior to be. And because the question with this one is it a bug or is it a data entry issue?
And I'm trying to see what version of Evergreen it's.
It doesn't have a version listed, but it's still occurring. Rogan looked at it in master last week.
Okay.
And the bug.
That's not we don't have a lot of. That's not something that we do typically because we're not putting that many records in for, and so we couldn't test that. I could test it, but
right. But if
it should not. Yeah.
Out there that uses a lot of located URIs, that would be one that would be, for them to weigh in on that bug.
Yeah. So that's just an example of things that we can. Because if we don't, then this is where decisions get made without us.
Exactly.
And I'm just going to leave this up here. And if anybody wants to look at a particular one, the next one is bib record merging for e-resources. Should delete those located URIs. And if we're not using them anyway, then that's probably not going to necessarily apply to many others on the call. I had to read this one over. The ampersand in the call number causes not well-formed error. I guess that's actually what the error is saying, not well-formed.
Yeah.
So you can't have a camera. Yeah. So I think we'd like to be able technically to have an ampersand in the call number, but let's see what kind of discussion is going on there.
Well, so that one didn't have somebody reported as an issue a long time ago.
And they can't duplicate it.
And now we can't duplicate it, in 3.2 in the web client. So that would be one where people with newer, but there's a big gap between 2.9 and 3.2. So that'd be one, like maybe somebody on 3.1 or something could take a look and see is that still happening in 3.1? Is it happening only in the Zool client, or is it happening in the Zool client and the web client, which 3.1 people have the unique ability to be able to test in both places or something like this. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'm still in that unique position. So I think this is kind of cool to look at them together because it's literally about seeing if you can create a call number with an ampersand in it. That's it, which wouldn't take very long at all. So some of these things that can sound intimidating, at least to me, to do testing, but that's not bad at all. I'll do that one today. Okay.
Well, I think it said it was when it happened when you transferred.
Right.
From Steve's.
Yeah. Mhm. I'm back over here. We're moving volume from one bib to another. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to create it then transfer it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Contains an ampersand. Yeah. Very cool. This person found that's what was causing it was the ampersand too. Okay. I'm going to put a little note on there. Then I'll test that one today. I'm going to put all of these up on the wiki and get them out. Well, they'll stay here on the agenda as well, so that we can at least, if people keep coming to the wiki, then I'll take them off as they get addressed. But at least so that we have all of these in one place for anybody that maybe wasn't on the call today. So again, if anybody wants to look at any of these, we can. Here's the duplicate barcode alert appearing on new barcodes. That sounds horrible. Let's see what that's doing here. Oh, that's long. Oh, the duplicate barcodes here.
I can give you a short version of that one.
That would be great.
It seems to be, if you type in a barcode in the web client, it doesn't show up. But if you scan in the barcode, sometimes the system erroneously thinks it's a duplicate barcode even when it's not. And I think John Amundsen, if you scroll down on one of the comments, John Amundsen there in comment number 2 has a theory that's related to the scanner. Like, so if you type in a barcode, it's slow enough that the system can check it. But if you're scanning it in, what Webby is checking is ends up checking the prefix and thinking that it's a duplicate when it's not. So that would be one. I can't test that, and I put a comment on the bottom that I think that his hunch is correct because I can't make it happen typing, but it would be great to have somebody see if they can replicate that with a known new barcode and see if they can get that to happen if they scan in a known new barcode and if they get the duplicate barcode error erroneously. But that would be somebody to test John's theory. Somebody would need to do that with a scanned barcode because his theory is it's going too fast, and that would give a better idea of where the developers can chase that down and see how to make that respond to scanning, because obviously typing, more people are going to be scanning barcodes than typing barcodes. So if it's an error that happens exclusively with scanning, that would be a good detail to know.
Okay, so scanning. Okay. I want that to go away. Okay. Then again, and I think that kind of gives us a feel, I'm watching the time, Andrea, of what these kinds of things are. And you can, how about, just like we've done just now, how about read the bugs and see if it's something that's just a matter of, okay, is this happening in the version that I'm using currently? And do you need me to test that? Even prevents us from having to set up a test server or having access to a test server. And this very last one has been, I would be remiss if I didn't get to this one. We've been talking about doing changing the MARC templates that are available, and at this moment I'm talking about bibliographic MARC templates that are available right out of the box for Evergreen for as long as I've been around in Evergreen, and that's been a few years. And now we're talking about authority MARC templates too, and this absolutely would need discussion, but it's also something that would be beneficial, not so much for those of us that already have our templates, but for anybody new joining in. It just makes Evergreen much more user-friendly instead of having to develop all of these from scratch, essentially, because we have bare bones there now, with bib records at least, and I don't know that we have authority templates at all now. If we do, I'm not using them. But so I think that's maybe a discussion that's been attempted there again on the listserv to crickets. So I think we can revisit that again, and I'll send that back out to the listserv. To try to get that conversation going. and try to dig out the old one, because I think maybe we had a little bit of feedback at one point. Are any of those, before I wrap things up, are any of these on the list something that anybody wants to talk about while we're all together? Some of it here just needs some user experience analysis on the holdings editor, which I think we talked a little about that already. Any of these other things? Okay. While we are here, really quick, our next meeting will be second Tuesday in December, which will be Tuesday, December the 11th. And I will start an agenda at the end of this week, so we'll be ready to start capturing things we want to talk about. Also wanted to just share opportunities for you and your systems. The call for funding for acquisitions has gone out, and this is making acquisitions. And while we're not going to read all of this right now, this is about making acquisitions work a little better and converting it to this Angular stuff that's going to matter in the next sprint for Webby, and to making it as functional and Webby as some of the other features have been. So, and quite a bit of work needs to be done on that. So there's a development plan if anybody's interested in asking your system to get involved in funding that.
And if anyone has any questions about that, they can either ask me or Kathy Lucier. So,
okay. Well, in this next
Kathy was here only for a couple of more weeks.
Yes, Kathy, I'm still in denial, personally.
Me too.
When is her last day?
It's literally 2 weeks from today. It's the 28th.
Literally. Oh, jeez.
It's actually on my calendar. With a fat
having a party here.
Wow.
Good. She deserves a big party.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what a talk about losing some institutional knowledge when she leaves us. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we're ending things on a sad note, if anybody wants to nominate somebody for an Evergreen Contributor of the Month, I think we also send that information to Andrea.
Yep.
There's the announcement that went out mid-October.
And we're going to be featuring our first person this week. I just got the thumbs up from the outreach committee, and the blog post is ready to go, so look for that. That'll be going out in the next day or two.
Fantastic.
Our very first person to acknowledge it. Yeah, send me your nomination.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an ongoing thing, so it's not just once, right? Every month.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Aha. Okay. Well, we're at 3 o'clock, but if anybody has anything they want to add, questions in general, things they want on next month's agenda, just can speak now, email me offline, email the listserv.
Do you think that if we have a bug that we would like to get attention, we should email the listserv and ask people to look at our bug?
Personally, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
As opposed to just having it be there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to call attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes, because I subscribe and I get all the bugs, but some days they go by so fast that you just miss it, and so it's a good idea.
Well, I subscribe to the bugs too, but I often find it difficult to know if a bug is there because of it's not that easy to search. What terms you should search to find a bug. So,
and there are a lot of emails. I'm just going to say.
Right.
Yes, there are a lot of emails.
And not so many. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Launchpad search is also notoriously terrible, like well-known terrible.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to search for them in Google.
Yeah.
Or just
I thought about that.
Yeah, we do that every once in a while.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to put it up. You can also search in Google. Okay, those are my personal notes. You can also search in Google. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I would say absolutely, because there's not a lot of traffic on the cataloging listserv, so let's use it. Okay, that's all I have. If anybody else does, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Jennifer, for being our fearless leader.
Thank you.
No, thanks to everybody on the committee for pulling this back together. Thank you. All right, everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll see you in December.
Okay, bye.
Bye.